Alright, so today we're going to be talking about fuel injectors and all that cool stuff. But before we get into the awesome working on your truck stuff, we got to learn ourselves a little bit of math and science and all that good stuff. But for those that get bored easily, here's some pictures of pretty injectors just for you to look at while we're doing this stuff. With the Jeep 4.0s, there were lots of different fuel injectors used throughout the years. You notice the 87 and 90, that's what we care about right here, the Renix era. So the color injectors were black, and the fuel rail pressure was 39. And if you notice, all of these right here are 39 psi. After 95 and 96, they switched to 49 psi. Well, why'd they do that? They actually put the fuel pressure regulator in the pump itself. So it's where the gas tank is. So there's no fuel pressure regulator on the rail. So all these afterwards were 49 psi, just how they were. Now we can look at the static flow over here. This is what they flow on the rail. So if you notice, the Renix era also flows the least amount per hour on the rail compared to all the other ones. Fuel injectors, if they're measured in psi, it's going to be 43.5 psi on the rail. Well, why 43.5? Well, 43.5 comes out to 3 bars exactly. So us Imperial guys just have to deal with a half. So this is what the fuel injectors would be rated at if you were looking at them on a website. So our Renix injectors flow 19.6 pounds per hour at 43.5 psi. But on the rail they only flow 18.6. So down here we have some formula to figure out what our actual flow rate would be. So you take the given injector flow rate, which would be 19.6 over here. You take your fuel rail psi, which is 39 psi, and your injector rated psi, which it could be a couple different things, but usually it'll be 43.5. And by doing the math here, you'll find out what your flow rate on the rail will be. So down here we actually plugged in the numbers. So we have 19.6, 39 over 43.5. You square these, and then you multiply it by that, and you get your number, 18.6 pounds per hour. There's also lots of calculators online, so if you just look it up, you'll be able to find out everything very easily. Another way you can look at this is to have your new pressure and your old pressure, if that makes more sense. So if you're trying to go the other way around or something like that, you'd put your new pressure up top and your old pressure on the bottom. So now we've learned how to compare fuel injectors. Cool. Now we can get into the nitty-gritty of choosing our own. Ooh. So all up in here, if we look at the top, we got some tips here for a Renix stroker. The injectors, and I'm pretty sure this goes for just about any Jeep, they have to be high impedance. That means that their ohm rating is between 8 and 16. There are low impedance injectors as well. The reason you can't use them is because they use a totally different system for actually opening and closing them. The ECU actually has to do different pulse widths in order to keep them open, so make sure it's a high impedance injector. The injector length should be 3 inches. Or 74 millimeters. So basically that's just a long injector. For our connector, we're going to need a Jetronic connector. So this is a Jetronic connector, square. This is a USCAR. It is round. These are not EV1 and EV6. That goes for the body style. If you look over here, this is an EV1 injector. Like these guys right here, big round fat body. This is an EV1. The EV6s, as you can see, are a lot narrower. That's the easiest way to tell them apart. If you can find an EV6 body style, they're preferred over the EV1 because they run cooler. They're a full plastic design instead of two-piece, so they're less likely to leak. And they run better. Most EV6s that I'm aware of are a 4-hole, so that's not really a problem. But, you know, just make sure to look out. Make sure that you're getting a 4-hole disc over a 1-hole. You can see a 4-hole EV6 compared to a 1-hole EV1. If you notice this one, it's a fine mist that goes out in 2 different directions versus this, which seems like it's more fuel and it's just in a direct shot. So it's not in the air. It's more like just squirting fuel out of like a spray gun or something. It's not that great. So this promotes better atomization. So you'll need less fuel, supposedly, to run the same amount. So they're just more efficient. What I've found is a 20-pound injector at 43.5 psi is needed for my stroker. I have a 4.6. It's not crazy, but 20 pounds seems to be about perfect. Now, I took the truck to get inspected with the 24-pound injectors, and it was way too much fuel. So this right here is a emissions inspection report for New Jersey inspection. So if we look over here, this is what we care about. We failed at idle, and we also failed at high idle. And why is that? Well, let's start at the top. So if we come over here to our idle, the standard reading is the maximum allowed amount of the gas measured. So if you go over this, you fail. So first one over here, HC, that is hydrocarbons, that is unburnt fuel in parts per million. If you notice, our reading was 250. The maximum allowed is 220, so we failed there. CO percentage, carbon monoxide, that is a byproduct of, I think, unburnt, or not completely burnt fuel. Instead of getting carbon dioxide, which is the proper combustible material, you're getting carbon monoxide, so it's not completely burning. If you notice, our reading at idle was 8.3. The standard is only 1.2. This is a fatal dose right here. If you drive around with this for a long period of time, you will pass out and possibly die. This is extremely unsafe. Carbon dioxide it's decent. It could be higher. If you notice down here, our oxygen count is 0. So that means there is no oxygen left over. And, you know, with all these readings, it sounds like we have a ton of extra fuel in this system. And high idle, basically the same stuff. Hydrocarbons are still very high. Carbon monoxide went even higher. And carbon dioxide went down a little bit. So, yeah. As you can see from this, we are not doing good at all with those 24-pound injectors. So let's go take a look at our scanner and see what the computer is telling us. Okay, so I fixed a vacuum leak. Now my idle's down from 1100 to about 600 and some, so that's good. That's the first problem. So I took the battery cable off and held it against the positive side for a little while to drain the ECU, hooked it back up. Now it's on a fresh start. So let's run that computer, see what we get. Yeah, it's not doing it anymore. Yeah, watch this one. There it is. See that? It went to open loop. We're running too rich. Alright, let's rip the fuel rail out. I feel like a bit of a dummy. I didn't realize that you don't have to remove those metal clips on there. It snaps on and snaps off. So I've been losing those clips and taking them all out and fucking around with them for all this time, and you don't even need to take them out. If you're unsure of where your plugs are going to go, make sure to label them. So we're just going to get all the wires and all the bullshit out of the way, take the rail off a second time, and I got some new O-rings for the old injectors. So the fuel rail is going to be under pressure, so make sure to take the cap off, push that Schrader valve in to release the pressure. Have a napkin or something to catch the little bit of fuel that comes out. Now that our rail is depressurized, we can take the bolts off and pull the injectors out. Okay, as a quick test, I got some injectors for my friend. This is from I think a 94 and a 95, since they have tan tops. They are a static flow, well, I guess they're a measured flow of 22 pounds per hour at 43.5 psi. So on my rail of 39, I think they come out to about 21.2 pounds per hour. So it's a little higher than my 18.6 stock, which are 19.4. I just want to see if slightly bigger injectors are any better. And they're free. Now, something I wanted to say about the fuel rail. See this right here? That right there is what a teared O-ring is about to look like. Just that little sliver sticking out there. That's all it takes for an O-ring to get cut up. So you have to pick it up a little and go down and wiggle it around. See how it's messed up? That's all it takes. So you really got to make sure when you put these guys in there, you're not cutting them up. It's a little squished, but it's not torn yet. If you know what the signs look like, you might be able to save it. But just be really careful when you slide them in there. So if you're feeling too much pressure, then it's not going in right. So sometimes you might be able to start at an angle and work your way down, but oh, there. See how easy that went down? Just like that. Really take your time. Now let's try these guys out, see what my engine likes. Okay, so no leaks, that's good. See how she runs. Wow, even those injectors put too much power out. That's too much. God damn it. Oh, that sucks. Let's try it again. Nope, still can't do it. Okay, so we got our old injectors. Got a injector O-ring kit. 274, 573. Sometimes it's called like a fuel injector seal kit or something like that. You just need 12 of these goofy little things. So we're going to WD them and slip them on. Okay, we swapped in the injectors and everything is hooked back up. We're in closed loop. This is what we're running. Back to the stock injectors. I let it warm up, I ran it for a little bit, drove it around the block. So as you can see, the stock injectors seem to do just fine for the Renix. It looks like they are pushing a little bit more fuel, but you know, that kind of makes sense. I'd be confused if it had to still pull back fuel. So, it looks like the stock injectors seem to do fine. So, 20 pounds is probably what you'd want for a Renix stroker. I got some 19.4 pounds coming in, because that's just what I could find. The stock are 19.6. If I really care about adding that little bit more fuel, I could get the adjustable pressure regulator, bump the pressure up a little, but I'm okay with it. I'm happy. It's damn near close to center. And she passed. Yeah, fucking baby. Passed NJ inspection. With this, with the 24 pounds, it was pushing so much smoke, it was terrible. The CO was so high that I damn near passed out driving it for a day. So it was also dangerous. Carbon monoxide is very lethal, and you don't realize it's coming on until it's too late. So here's the new results here. You look down here at the idle, hydrocarbons is 70. And the standard, like the max allowable, is 220. The old reading was 250, so we're down quite a lot on hydrocarbons. And CO, 0%. That is amazing. The previous reading was like 9.6. It was so high. There's actually oxygen in the system now, so that's good, I think. Oxygen means what? Unburned fuel, so if anything it might be running slightly lean. When CO2 is up, that's good. That means like that's a product of combustion, so that means it's combusting properly. Before, I think CO2 was pretty low. And as for idle, or high idle, the hydrocarbons actually went down a little bit, and CO went up just the tiniest sliver. So that's nothing. That is awesome. I think it's time to upgrade these EV1 injectors. These are the stock ones. They've been doing pretty good, but I want to see if I can do better. So, I looked up online to find some EV6s. So this is an EV6 injector. You notice the body's much thinner, and it has the square Jetronic plug on it, not the USCAR, which is the round one with the clip thing on the side. Now these ones, they flow 19.4 pounds per hour at 43.5 psi, so only 0.2 less than stock. But hopefully with the better fuel atomization and everything, it shouldn't be an issue at all. I mean, it's nothing. So in case you're wondering, these are 0, 280, 155, 712. So here's a much better comparison on what they look like side by side. A little hard to tell. 4-hole versus 1-hole. Same plug and everything. And these ones are even labeled which side of the injector gets what. So positive on this side, negative on the other, which is neat. Alright, don't forget that every time you do a major change, like fuel injectors, fixing a vacuum line, or something that would affect performance, it's always best with the Renix systems to remove the negative cable and touch it to the positive cable for 30 seconds just to clear out the memory, so that way your computer starts learning fresh again. So, reset the ECU, everything's hooked up, ready to go. We'll prime the fuel rail a couple times and see how she starts. Alright, a little hard to tell. I think I'm going to have to take her on a drive to see how it does, let the computer normalize, figure out what the hell it's doing. We'll come back and see what the measurements are. So she's running great now. Emissions proven. I'm happy with it. There you go. That's how you tune yourself. 4.6 Renix stroker. Come and get some.